Hi guys. Thank you for coming back into this podcast. My name is Tristan Tai. I'm the host of this podcast series. Today we have a very special guest. He's a good school friend of mine. We've worked together for many months now in AP Language and Composition. We've sat next to each other for practically, like 4 months. So, we know each other pretty well. Please welcome to this podcast, Kui.
Hi, it's great to be here, and I think we have a lot of stuff to discuss about in
Alright.
our books that we were reading.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, I guess what we can do is we can start off with your book, kind of just explain the background of the book. So, who are the authors? What are their backgrounds? And also what the book's about. So, if you want to start on that.
all right, for sure. So I was reading the making of behavioral economics, and or the title is misbehaving, the making of behavioral economics, and it was written by Richard H. Thaler. And basically, a little background on Richard H. Thaler. He um he is a professor at the Chicago University School or Booth of Business, and basically he kind of gained the title of founding father of behavioral economics through his work and research, and basically pioneered the subcategory and the field. So and yeah, so the book just talks about his experience with behavioral economics and argues against the current economic system
Hmm.
that is prevalent within our society, and saying that the current system does not incorporate human error and such things like random numerical data that humans generate, because the current system is actually pretty straightforward. It's very like one directional
Hmm.
almost. So
So it's
yeah.
kind of like your author is pushing for like a reward based system where like you want them to do something to be good, right? Kind of ish in a sense.
um I'm a little bit confused about that question. Like what so can
So
you elaborate?
yeah, so like your book is kind of like against the current system, which like doesn't really incorporate human desire, human error, right?
Hmm.
So would you say that your book maybe encourage, because this really relates to my book, right? So which I'll explain in a bit, but like this book kind of encourages maybe incentivization based like economics ish a little bit
um Maybe. So like what do
maybe.
you mean by incentivization?
Okay,
Like
well, maybe if I explain my book, it'll help you.
yeah.
Okay, so my book is Freakonomics, and it was co-written by two authors, Stephen D. Lewitt and Stephen J. Dubner. And so Stephen D. Lewitt was a Harvard graduate. He has a degree in economics and has many years of experience working for a Fortune 500 company. And so he's also earned a doctorate from MIT and was a professor for the University of Chicago. So like he's very, very, very smart, knows what he's doing. Same with J. Dubner. He has a Master's of Fine Arts from Columbia, editor for New York Times. So they both wrote this book, Freakonomics, and so I kind of already mentioned it, but it kind of focuses on the idea of incentivizations and how incentivization plays in like a major role in a lot of issues, whether good or bad, kind of like on many different scales. So like maybe smaller scales or really big scales. So like moral issues, economic issues, and so each chapter kind of focuses on a different topic. Um, I'll give like some examples right now. So like one topic was perhaps the top abortion. Another one was talking about sumo wrestlers. Another one teachers. So it's like all over the place, but it's somehow very connected. And so it kind of focuses on the idea of incentivization. So you asked what incentivization is, right?
Yeah.
So I'll just
Yeah.
give you kind of like a small example right now. So I let's just say I'm a very bad student. I do not get straight A's constantly. So and I play a lot of video games, so I get grounded a lot, right?
Yeah.
It's not true, but
Yeah. Yeah.
don't judge me. but But like what happens is what incentivization is, if I'm grounded and I want to play games, my parents will be like, "Look, you're doing bad in school right now. So if you wanna play video games, you're gonna have to get A's, all A's, right?" So what incentivization is you have a reward right here, right? And in order to get that reward, you have to reach your goal. And so incentivization is kind of just like saying, look, this is what reason are you doing this for? So for me, I'm getting straight A's to play video games. The incentivization is to play video games. So I'll give you an example or so far do you understand that? I'll give like an actual world example that they did.
I'm starting to kind of get the grasp of this position.
Okay. And so the world issue that they talk, I mean, not really world issue, but maybe bigger issue that they talk about is a daycare center in Israel. And so sometimes parents pick up their kids late just because maybe traffic, maybe just some outside issues. And so I mean, sometimes it happens, and obviously people would be understanding if they're like late maybe once in a while. But let's just say you kind of were somewhat regular of coming in late, right? Let's just say you had a child, and maybe every other week you'd come in late. Well, let's just hope you don't have a child, right? But so let's just say you do, and you come in late every other week. When you walk into that building, what emotions, what kind of feelings do you experience when you walk in?
I mean, I would probably feel the sense of shame
Mm-hmm.
and for either forgetting about my child, um, and
Definitely.
just simply picking them up late.
Definitely. So the moral incentive, right? The idea of incentives is you wouldn't want to pick up your child late, right? Because you don't want that feeling of guilt or shame, right? So that's kind of like what the idea of incentives is that you have this why do you do things, and so that's like the incentive. And so now my book, it doesn't necessarily just talk about like one incentive, it talks about the change in incentive, right? And so now this the same day center was like, what if we add fines to, like, if you pick up your child late on a regular basis, what if we add fines? What would you think would happen?
I would most likely think. I mean, from a very like straight on perspective, I would hope that it would encourage parents to pick up their child like on time.
And so in your so now that's your personal opinion. In my personal opinion, I thought the same as well. Where like, well, like I have to pay money now, and so now what if I told you the money wasn't enough? Like what would you say $3 is a lot?
I mean, I think in certain regions of the world, yes,
Well,
but
so this is so I guess that is true. So if we're talking about Israel, let's just say three. Or I think it might be three is Israeli dollars, but that's not. Let's just say for the most part, that's not a lot, right?
mhm.
So my book kind of says that, look, in reality, it's not the case. When you enact that low of a fine, the data shows that the number of late pickups went up. And so before like a couple of weeks, right, there were an average of 20 late pickups per week, which was more than double the original average of late pickups. And so that $3 fine was too small. And so now when we go back to the idea of incentives, that moral incentive, right, that the idea of I don't want to feel shame, I don't want to feel guilt, I don't want to feel these negative emotions, I do not want to be stared down at, I do not want to be given the stink eye, right? All those negative emotions, they're gone because it's been replaced with a financial incentive.
Mhm.
See, now that guilt is replaced with, oh, I just gotta pay $3 and I'm chilling, right? So that's
Yeah.
kind of like the idea of my book is like how does changing the incentive, how does incentives overall just change the picture of what happens in the world. Obviously this isn't on a very big scale like the country economic policy, but it's kind of like just the basics. So like with your book, let's just say like how would your author, how would your book kind of respond to what I would say?
Um, Honestly, I think so. So now I kind of get the grasp of
Mm-hmm.
incentivization. Um, I think incentivization and behavioral economics kind of would play a very similar role and in correlation with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Due to the fact that, so I'm gonna give you an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the book, be misbehaving.
Mm-hmm.
So Fowler conducts an experiment where he would hypothetically give um a person $500,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they can either risk a 50% chance of losing $200 from the 500, or take a calculated loss of $100, like surely losing $100.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, what would you do in this situation?
I feel like I might risk it for the
You might
thing.
risk it.
I might risk it.
So see that's the exact answer that 64% of the people surveyed
Oh.
gave. And yeah, it's crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that kind of proves um how humans kind of create random numerical data, because
Mm-hmm.
like, so because the system currently is very structured and it's
Mm-hmm.
very straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
um but the book kind of um is written to explain that humans
Uh,
deviate from the standard
I
set
see. I see.
by economists, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your book plays a, I feel like it plays a very similar role,
Mm-hmm.
due to both of the books being
Mm-hmm.
written about humans within the economy.
I think our books match up really well because like you said that the current system doesn't really emphasize what humans want, or like the kind of like the desire, or the what is it, like kind of the nature of human beings, right? It's like such a straightforward system, but we have over 7 billion people on this planet, and everyone is different. Maybe some similarities here and there, but everyone's different in one way or another. And so I kind of just like I feel like your book kind of says that look, it's not straightforward. And my book, right, I feel like it expands on it, is that look, there's many more patterns that you wouldn't even expect, right? So now here, I'll give you another example, and then I'll ask you, see what you think, and then I'll explain
Right.
kind of from my perspective. So in the 1970s to late 1980s, the I'm just giving you statistics right now. The violent crime rate rose 80%. So at this point in time, like kind of experts and kind of the just criminologists were like, look, we have to do something before the crime rate just is just so bad and things happen. But the thing is, the homicide in 1990, the crime rates, homicide rates fell, right? Homicides fell at a greater rate during the 1990s than any other crime. And so would you care to, maybe would you like to guess on why the crime rate fell in the 1990s?
um I honestly can't really think of a reason why the crime rate fell.
Okay, here I'll give you maybe I'll give you a answer choice and I'll let you guess.
Mhm.
So police, maybe do you think that the increase in police helped increase crime rate or decrease crime rate?
um I would think that, it might have increased crime rate.
Why do you think that?
Well, I feel like, you know through, and I don't want to get into like the whole
Hmm.
um societal
Yeah,
issue
yeah, yeah.
about
No worries
about
about that.
about that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But um I think it kind of leads to more like, I would say like
Oppressive.
um oppressive like
Mm-hmm.
actions from the authorities
Mm-hmm.
towards, more impoverished people,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore forcing them to kind of retaliate in a way
Yeah, I see.
or something like that.
So, I'll give you the answer on that. Is that um, the increase in police didn't actually raise crime.
Oh,
So kind of the idea with my book is that yes, there are patterns, yes, there are correlations, but does that mean that they relate to each other? Does that mean that one severely affects the other? And so kind of like one of the bigger ideas in my book is just because there are patterns doesn't mean if it correlates. So I'll
mm-hmm.
give you a quote because I feel like it summarizes it better than I do. Is that so? If you just look at the raw correlations between police and crime, you'll find that when there are more police, there tends to be more crime. That doesn't mean that the police are causing the crime, right? Because it doesn't. Because the idea is that more police doesn't cause more crime. It's that more crime causes more police.
Oh, that makes
and
a lot of
and
sense.
so kind of I feel like so your book kind of focuses maybe on the individual human ish, like kind of like more on the
Yeah,
individual. I feel like
definitely.
my book also I mean, although it does focus on individuals at times, it focuses more on kind of the general society. And so with that with that in mind, in fact, is that more police, more punishment, more imprisonment cause less crime. But that's not the idea, or that's not the focus of what I was trying to get at. So I'll get to that. Um, so in 1973, we had a monumental court case, Roe v. Wade, which legalized the abortion of women, or no, the woman's right to have
Yeah.
an abortion.
All right.
um, and so you would think that that has no correlation to crime rate, right? Or what would you think? What would you think? I'll let you guess.
Um, you know, I think I think the logic to be given here is that if you know if they are if they legalize abortion rates,
Mhm.
right? Or sorry, if they legalize abortion for
Mhm.
women,
Mhm.
um, there will be less offspring to be, to in the future to have abortions. Therefore, there will be a less crime rates.
Mhm. So you got it. That's exactly what happened. Is that like before 1973? I mean, abortions existed before 1973. They just weren't legal. So that means that it was probably more expensive, right?
Hmm.
So that means that if you were a wealthy, at least middle class woman, you probably, if you got pregnant and you didn't want to be pregnant, you could probably get an abortion illegally. Maybe, and it's expensive, right? But if you think about it, so now this is kind of where the correlation, the relation, like kind of comes at it all. When you is that when you think of people that do crime, these people that do crime are lower class. They're very poor, so they're desperate. So they're desperate for food, shelter, money, anything, right? And so they're more likely to do crime. It's not really necessarily like I'm targeting them. It's kind of just a matter of fact that when you don't have the things that you need in life, such as food, shelter, family, is that you're probably going to do crime to resort to those things, right? You're probably going to steal some food.
Yeah.
You might kill someone for their money. You might steal a car. You might sell drugs to make a living, right? And so this is where the idea comes into play, is that when abortion was legalized, that gives lower class women the ability to have an abortion. Because before 1973, it's not like no one ever did an abortion. It was only wealthy and middle class women that were given the ability to have an abortion because it was very expensive, right? And
Mhm.
so now when it's very expensive, then the lower class can't get it. So now when you legalize it, now they can get it at a pretty much accessible price. And so that's kind of where the correlation is now that 1990, those children that would have committed the crimes, right? Because it's 1973. The children that would have committed the crimes don't exist anymore because they were aborted as babies, and so kind of the idea of incentivization and kind of like the idea there's like a cause and effect thing is that there's many patterns in today's society that happens as a result of something else, but it's perhaps not direct. Because because we talked before recording this podcast, right? So you kind of already knew a little bit of my book. I knew a little bit of your book, but like I feel like if we didn't read my book, I feel like if someone random were to ask us, did abortion lower crime rates, we would say, what the heck? It doesn't do. I feel like it wouldn't do anything. I don't think there's any relation, right? So my book, like it focuses on kind of the worldly issues, the values, and kind of like how they correlate, and that there's more to the picture than just plain economics. There's an entire reason why something happens, and it's not because of this, it's because of that. And so I think your book and my book, they're like super similar in the idea is that it's the economics, world issues, anything is not flat out. It's not so super clear, straight, simple. It's in fact more complicated. Do you have any comments on what I just said?
I completely agree with you. Yeah, like Thaler makes the argument that, instead of so I'm gonna give you some context of the argument he makes. So within the book, he talks about economists and humans, right? And basically what Thaler does is kind of he alienates economists and kind of dehumanizes them, and describe them as beings that are built to optimize, right? And living like an economist is like making logistical like decisions based on what is ever present in front of you, like what is the outcome if this happens, what is the probability. While humans, it's very random. Like a lot of people take different problems and solves them and deal with them differently than what economists would do. So going back to the similarity between your book and my book, I think it's really similar. Like how you said that the economy isn't very straightforward. It isn't one directional. It's very random and chaotic, and that's what Thaler kind of preaches within his book. So.
And so here, sorry, I'm just making sure I have the correct notes here. And so, kind of the idea of what yours is, your book and my book, is that why human choice, human desire, human mistakes are super important in creating the idea of economics, right? Is that incentives drives human choice. Is that incentives are very important tools for encouraging employee engagement, right? If I were to be working a 9-to-5 office job, right, maybe writing like letters or like emails, right, every day, right, I feel like our performance, our engagement would be increased if my boss was like, hey, if you can write 20 emails in 2 hours, we'll host a pizza party, right? So it's kind of like the idea is that human choice, what your book, Human Choice, Human Mistakes, is driven by incentives. And so the thing is that incentives, there's kind of like I already explained, is that when you change an incentive, there might be a reason to explain, or there might be a reason to perhaps move out of a like just I lost my train of thought. there might be like just human choice drives the the incentive, or the incentive drives human choice, and that's kind of what your book was talking about human choice, and mine was talking about incentives. So that's kind of how like our books really mesh together. So.
No, I completely agree with
Mhm.
that. Um, and so I would like to add on to the human choice factor that you were elaborating on.
Mhm.
So within the book, I don't know if you in your book referenced this, but it might have not have. But okay, so there's this theory, right? It's called
Mhm.
prospect theory,
Prospect.
and it was written by Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman,
Mhm.
and it basically talks about um how humans make decisions. You know,
Mhm.
like in and it correlates with this book because Ballard wrote about it. But in within the theory, how they conducted the experiments was that they put hundreds of people under this like crazy amount of um pressure, right?
Mhm.
And they kind of graphed out their train of thought and how accurately they can make decisions based on this pressure. And what what came of it was that the survey resulted in this graph that um skewed to the left, which was negative feelings and um more loss rather than um you know like
Mhm.
positive feelings and gain. And this was due to the fact that it correlates with how humans take risks. And
Mhm.
the example that I gave earlier on how um, the 50% chance of losing 200 from 500 rather
Mhm.
than taking 100% chance loss of $100 from the 500,
Yeah.
and it just resulted in that, and it came out with this very interesting shape graph, and I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure they developed this theory in 1974,
Mm.
um, but was worked on and developed and later released in 19, I think I have in my notes right here, 1992.
I see. Okay.
Um, so it's, I mean, if you're really interested in it, I think you should definitely look at it.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it correlates very well with
I see.
uh, our two books. So
Yes, I think I mean our books. I feel like they kind of like they're different. I wouldn't say issues or topics, but I feel like maybe so my book is maybe more broad, kind of, and your book is more like specific. It's kind of in the idea. Your book talks about sorry, I forgot the word. It was behavioral economics, right?
mhm.
And I think incentives is like a branch off of behavioral economics. Is one way that behavior affects, well, obviously economics, right? And so
Mhm.
like I mean, it's just I think our books like are pretty well knit together, and I'll kind of like I'll just here there's like a reason, like when you think about it, right? Incentives, I keep mentioning incentives, but it's really important to know that every day our lives are filled with incentives, and it's a matter of what we do. So human choice of what happens is that what we do that affects our lives, right? And so I feel like there's like a difference in our books, is that while yours talks about mainly economics, is that mine I feel like is able to be applied to maybe everyday life. And so there's like some so outside sources, and so there's a website that was I mean Forbes, they did a little article, and it was kind of talking about in the business aspect, is that incentives are tricky because you do too much of an incentive and now everyone does it. You do too little of an incentive and no one does it, right?
Mhm.
Is that you have to be really balanced on incentives. And I feel like my book or Freakonomics explains that really well, is that incentives must be balanced in order for it to be good. Is that like the do you remember the daycare example that I gave you?
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that
yeah.
is that $3 fine was too small, and so
Mhm.
people replaced one incentive with another, and instead of detracting from the number of late pickups, it increased it because the incentive completely changed. it was from one thing to another. And so I think another important aspect of my book is that you have to be careful with incentives. And I feel, is there any other thing that your book talks about, how social decision can drive something really badly or something really good?
Yeah. So, okay, I kind of have a similar example of how changing something might lead to a different outcome. So literally in the first 4 pages of the book, he talks about him being a professor at the Chicago Booth of Business, right? And so he used to grade his tests from the scale of like 1 to 100. You know how like we do it, right? Where it's out of 100. But he discovered that changing the cap, like the bottle cap of the scoring to 130 shifts students' moods. Like his students used to be, mad when they received like a 74 on on a test, and it affects them negatively, like emotionally. It makes them sad, it makes them angry, whatever, right? But as soon as he shifts the score from 100, or the cap from 100 to 130, most of the class, I'm pretty sure the statistics within the book was like 95% of the class felt a greater emotional shift, like positive emotions, like like relief, happiness, as soon as they saw a greater score out of 130. Even though it might have resulted in the same percentage, like overall calculated percentage, it invoked a more positive
I see.
emotion from them. So I think that your example of the daycare, of how they put $3 as the incentive for parents to pick people up, affected their process of the idea of them processing like the outcome, right? And it correlates really well to this because it's basically the same concept.
I see. Yeah. I mean, as we wrap up our time in today's podcast, is that both of our books are like super related, and it's like, and although mine perhaps talks about world issues, yours talks about economics, is that the idea is the same, that when you change an incentive, or perhaps when you make a different choice, when something else happens differently, the entire outcome is changed. And so I think, like, although perhaps our books talk about something different, or maybe a little bit different, right, is that the idea is when you change something else happens. And so incentives is like a great way. Although your book doesn't really talk about incentives, I feel like it's sort of implied when it's talked about human decision. And so the main idea is that incentives can change the way someone does something, and you have to be careful with them. And so do you have any last comments for today?
I would say, I would make the comment that to kind of reinforce the overall podcast and what we gained from this experience was that our books are, even though they talked about different things, I feel like behavioral economics and incentives, or the study of incentives, is correlates really well with each other.
Yes.
And it's been a great pleasure being on this podcast for the AP Lang class. And yeah.
Well, you've been a great guest so far, and so I'd like to thank you once again for coming today. And I think it went really well, because our books were just so like, just like, they're two different books, they're two different authors, and somehow it just went like, woo, and it just connected really well. And so I'd like to thank you for coming to today's show, and I hope to see you Tuesday.
Well, yeah, me too. So thank you guys so much for tuning in,
and we'll see you soon. All right, bye.